All right, folks, thank you for joining us today. It's May 22nd, 2023, and I have the distinguished honor and pleasure to be joined by one of the best researchers in the game, Tokenicer, joining us here today. Thank you so much for coming on the show here today, brother.
Thanks for having me on, Zach. I've been a big fan of everything you've been doing regarding the XRP community, and I can't wait to see how I can contribute to your content today.
This is going to be a great little session because we're going to get to touch on some of the other utility tokens and projects and problems that we need to solve that I haven't covered, right? I've kept my work pretty exclusive in the cryptocurrency space, focusing on the trillion-dollar problems. I always say in regards to researching cryptos, if it's not a trillion-dollar problem, it doesn't turn me on. But I'm excited to chop it up here today with you, Tokenicer, and see some of the other projects that get you excited. And my audience is going to get some gems, I think, from this session. One of the best researchers in the space. So at the very beginning, I just want to say, guys, we're going to link this gentleman's website down below. And do you want to give that website real quick before we get started?
Yeah, for sure. So if you guys just go to http:/tokenizer.network, that pretty much has all my content platforms right there. So my YouTube videos, Medium articles, Spotify podcasts, and my Twitter threads, and a whole lot of other things, they'll be right there for you guys to check out just simply in one platform. So yeah.
Now, Tokenizer was going to do one of his first face reveals on today's episode, but he's just getting his setup there, so we don't get the full visual, the mysterious shadow figure over there on the side. But believe me, folks, I've been watching your work for a while, and I've been very impressed with your research. So let's get right on to it. Let's talk, first off, macro crypto, state of the market, state of the bear market, state of being sad and depressed because the crypto space is getting made fun of. We're seeing in the United States an unprecedented attack on stifling innovation. As an American, I am embarrassed. I was going to say that we're not going to give up your location, but it's pretty easy to tell with you guys' Canadian accent where you guys are coming from. But you guys are moving forward up there, and then we're seeing Europe and some other regions start to press forward and kind of lead the way, set a precedent that I hope the United States catches up with. But where are you at with this bear market, with the lack of regulations and this recession that our economy is on the brink of?
Yeah, so I think it's clear to say that crypto's taken a really massive hit over the course of 2022. I mean, in 2021, we went from being on top of the world, mass adoption, to pretty much falling right off a cliff amidst the whole Luna, FTX, and Celsius thing, right? Like, if there's a story for hero to zero, this is it. And so I think it's going to definitely take some time to kind of recover from those burns and pains that we've suffered through all of the things I just mentioned and more, not to mention the banking closures that kind of indirectly happened from crypto, or at least that's what the media says, right? So I think it's going to take some time for us to, get back up on our feet and climb back up to the level we were at before. But I think within that also comes a lot of opportunity for projects that, are building in a regulated environment and are contributing in a real economic sense. Because I think we can all agree that there are a bunch of projects in this space that you could argue add zero economic value. And if anything, it's a better way to put it, a waste of space for the most part, right?
Yeah.
And so I think this gives a lot of the regulated projects the opportunity to build and kind of get the spotlight on them this time to be like, hey, we're not like, Luna or FTX, where they were building kind of this, I don't want to say Ponzi, but for better or for worse, not the most sustainable environment and tokenomics, right?
Very
And so,
polite way to put it there, Tokenizer.
yeah, got to be careful here. So I think a lot of these projects, such as, let's say, XRP, XLM, Quant, Hadera hashgraph, XDC, Energy Web, and a bunch of others that are, working with these legacy industry leaders, such as like JP Morgan, Shell, Goldman Sachs, Visa, and all those other companies that we already interact with on a day-to-day basis. The ones working with these guys are getting a lot more of the spotlight now. And we're seeing it with announcements in kind of this whole blockchain space, right? There's a lot more focus on partnerships that will add real value to a business's workflows versus what we were seeing a lot of before, where kind of the spotlight was on these projects that, quote unquote, just made people money.
Yeah, 100%. And are you in a similar camp as me in that, for one, it's easy to see who's a legitimate project because they're still building during a bear market recession. They haven't gone away. See, everybody was participating and having fun and getting to pump their project that had no utility. But now the tide's gone out and we get to see who's swimming naked. And there was about 90% of crypto that was swimming naked with no real problem solved, no real business, no real utility. So right now it's easy to see who's still building and is a legitimate project. But are you in a similar camp? For me, when I see that we went to a $3 trillion market cap during last bull run, to me, that's just getting started. And we're going to 10x that plus. I mean, I think that we have trillions of dollars that are coming into this and that are going to be settled on these networks. Not just the market cap, but actual settlement taking place, actual exchange of value taking place on a daily basis. We see in the traditional markets that it's valued in the trillions of dollars, derivatives, hundreds of trillions. Is it all going to XRP? No, we've never said that. What we've said is it's going to DLT technology. And so are you in a similar camp into where you're seeing that, what we did last bull run was cute, but what's coming to this space is absolutely massive? Your thoughts?
I absolutely agree with that. Like, you took the words out of my mouth pretty much, because you're completely right in the sense that we saw a $3 trillion market cap, but that's peanuts compared to the equities market, which I believe is at about 250 trillion. You go to derivatives and Forex, those two combined are over $250 in value. So to think, crypto's peaked at 3 trillion. Maybe I shouldn't say crypto, but distributed ledger technology as a whole peaked at 3 trillion. I don't think so personally. And I think we have a lot more room to grow, because the one thing we should remember about not just digital assets, but blockchain and DLT as a whole is that with all these previous kind of financial instruments that we've seen, say like stocks, bonds, and Forex, they only served as a financial instrument, essentially, right? Like, you can't do anything really with a stock. I guess you could, vote for the underlying company if you hold enough of that stock. But for the most part, there's not real utility to these financial assets. Whereas with these digital assets, and we have to be careful here, right? Because of the whole securities laws and stuff, but there is kind of the price appreciation because of the demand for its use cases. But because of these use cases, there's so much more value capture that can happen. Because if we take XRP, for example, it's not just, it's not even asset and ownership of the company Ripple in itself, but it's kind of payment and access to the utilities of what happens on XRP ledger. And we've never seen something like this before, to where we can price something with use cases to it. And I think the closest thing it could be tied to is really like real estate, because real estate is something where it appreciates in value, but there's also demand for its use cases, right?
It's funny that you mentioned real estate, because Ripple was just selected to actually work on tokenizing real estate in Hong Kong just recently, right? So like you said, we get to see these legitimate projects still building, still partnering, and still being selected by some of the biggest banks and institutions in the world. So since you brought that up, what is your thoughts? An outsider looking in at the United States, excuse me, looking in at the United States and the corruption that we've exposed in this SEC versus Ripple lawsuit, in what seems to be almost a weaponized case to hold back and give time to the incumbents. Now, obviously, that's my speculation and how I think this story plays out. But where are you at from the outside looking in at the United States, the SEC, and our lack of regulations and getting our act together down here?
I think the whole SEC, United States, and even the CFTC thing, it's a really slippery slope to walk down, because, there's a lot of people saying, cryptos aren't securities and they're more like commodities. But who's to say that if the CFTC oversees crypto, it's not going to have the same level of, oversight and issues that we're seeing with the SEC right now? Like, I don't know exactly when you joined the XRP community, but around the time when I first got into crypto was when XRP got hit with that lawsuit. I think I joined literally like 3 days after they got hit with the lawsuit, because I remember seeing it fall to 20 cents. And I was like, oh, well, if Bitcoin got to 30,000, well, XRP can do it from 20 cents, right? So I remember buying a big bag there. And then it wasn't until later on I kind of learned about how different XRP was from Bitcoin. But then that also kind of made me realize kind of the importance of the whole securities things, right? Because it's been kind of agreed upon a general consensus that Bitcoin isn't going to be seen as a security whatsoever. But with companies that, for better or for worse, are a bit more centralized with a core team and stuff, there is kind of more strings you have to be careful of walking through just because of kind of how the United States is, I guess, almost lobbying the crypto industry, right?
Yeah.
And so I think when we look at some of these other nations, whether it be London, Hong Kong, Europe, they've kind of all gotten their acts together with a proper regulatory framework on how to go about the forward progression of these, not just digital assets, but the blockchain space as a whole. And that's more than, what's a security and what's not, but what can blockchain legally be utilized for and when should it not be utilized because of security issues, say? So I think the US really has to get their act together because we're seeing all these companies, Coinbase is just the start of them, but we've seen Coinbase say they're perfectly okay with relocating in London if it means their operations can run more smoothly, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that up because I've been saying something similar in that I think that most ICOs were unregistered securities offerings. And so I think that 90% of the space is a security by definition. It does is if they're not sufficiently decentralized and they are relying upon that core team and the sales are coming from the core team, it might not mean that the asset itself is security per se in its purest form, but most of those early sales, most of those ICOs were unregistered securities offerings, and so they're going to have a problem. With Ripple, what we saw is they never conducted an ICO. There's a different set of facts and circumstances. Now, if they settle up too, then they're not going to be setting the precedent like the space is kind of hoping for. And this is where I think a lot of the space is kind of confused right now. And like you said, there's good justification. The security law is very, established. And a lot of these projects, the way they were conducted, built out, and sold through ICOs and other mechanisms, they did meet the Howey prongs test, all prongs of the Howey test, I should say. And so I've been warning the crypto space about that for a while. Now we're finally starting to see the breakthrough in the case. Hopefully it's going to be coming soon. And my prediction is that the secondary market sales are going to be good to go. And I think that the only place that they can get Ripple on would be some of those early sales. And that case might continue on, might go to trial. I don't know. We could be here for another few years in this case, for all I know. I've been so hardened as an XRP community member and holder through this lawsuit that it's not going to surprise me if we're in this thing for another 2-3 years and we go to the Supreme Court over some part of it. But I'm hoping that we get in kind of an indirect clarity on the ruling from Judge Torres on the summary judgment, in which she'll say that not every sale of XRP is an unregistered securities offering. But some of these contracts, some of these deals, some of the early options that were given to people close to Ripple, those might conduct, an offering of a security. What is your take and what is your prediction on how this case is going to come down and end?
I guess what I would want personally from this case is for the SEC to be exposed for all their lies and everything that happened with kind of the emails back then, right? But we're probably not going to get the full story of that side of things. I think it'll probably meet somewhere in the middle where I'm not sure if it'll be by settlement or what it may be by, but I think I agree with you that those early sales of XRP do likely fall under the Howey test as a sale of securities, right? But at the same time, I think after that, XRP has proven over the 6 or however many years ever since they last did those sales that the XRP token doesn't rely on the team and that it's being utilized for things outside of kind of investments, right? And to just kind of add to that, I really do think that the US and kind of the world as a whole needs a new way to define and regulate these digital assets, kind of like how Europe's done with MiCA, because was the Howey test, I think, was made in the very early 1900s, right? Like 1917 or something. And so to still be using that when, so many things that didn't exist back then now do exist. I mean, we could start off with computers and just basic software and technology, right? That wasn't a thing back in 1917. And to use a framework like that to regulate things where everything's done digitally now, I think is just going a little backwards.
Right. Yeah, from I think it was the 1930s when that Howey test was applied to that case that went to the Supreme Court. And so we might be, America's just stubborn as hell, and so we might be sending it to the Supreme Court once again, and 2 years from now we'll finally get clarity. Hopefully that's not the case. But like you said, excuse me, what we're seeing is a company in Ripple that tried to do things the legitimate way, and that's all we're asking for in this space, is just give us the rules of the road. And the legitimate actors aren't worried about these laws, because if they need to come in and register with the SEC because they're selling a security, that's fine. They'll do that the proper way. If we're going to classify this as something else and establish a new bureaucracy to regulate this, then okay, that's fine. Just give us the rules of the road, because anybody who's legitimate, building a real business in this space, trying to utilize this technology, just wants clarity. Just tell us where to register, what this is, how to sell it, how to use it, and let us build. Because I really believe that this technology is going to change humanity. A fourth industrial revolution, I think, Citizen of the Future kind of coined that term, right? What we have here is a pivotal moment where not only are we kind of popping the everything bubble, the asset bubble that we experienced over the last decade or so across the world has been popped, and now we're resetting the currencies and we're rolling out a new technology. So it's something that hasn't been seen in decades, some say 100 years. And so while we're on the topic, I wanted to ask you, where do you think DLT plays a role in kind of resetting currencies, debt, and tokenizing an internet of value over the next 10 years or so?
Yeah, so I think that's a really good question to begin with, because I don't think enough people realize just, how big blockchain and DLT is going to be in our future system, not just in currencies and finance, but in every part of it, right? Like if you think about auditability or supply chains, energy, and so much more, even like entertainment. There's an argument for DLT to disrupt that specific industry, regardless of what it is. But I think specifically regarding currencies and finances as a whole, I think to begin with, all traditional securities and financial contracts, so things like bonds, those are going to be tokenized on chain because it makes so much more sense, right? You can get instant settlements, you can get global liquidity, and you can get full immutability and audit tracing of where that specific asset has been, right? Now, with currencies, of course, we've seen central bank digital currencies from guys like just about every central bank you can think of. And then, of course, the Bank for International Settlements, which many title the central bank for central banks. And we've seen tons of different CBDC pilots on there, right? From things like MCBDC, Jura, Helvetia, Rosalind, and many more. Most of these are using a blockchain and distributed ledger technology in some way or form. So I think that goes to say a lot for the future of currencies, right? If these large banks around the world are all experimenting on central bank digital currencies, specifically on a distributed ledger technology, that's probably a pretty easy way to put two and two together and be like, oh, so that's probably where the future of our financial system's heading, right? And it makes a lot of sense, because if we look back to how distributed ledger technology was kind of brought to light initially with the 08 crisis back in, 2008, right? That was largely because there was no proof of ownership and it wasn't immutable to where you could see who owned what, right? And so that kind of caused the whole system to collapse. With distributed ledger technology set in place, that likely, I don't want to say likely because we can't be sure whether it happened or not, right? But with distributed ledger technology in place, I think the odds of that catastrophe happening drop quite significantly, because we have a full registry and history of, who owned what asset and what mortgage at that time.
And we just blew the bubble up even bigger than it was before, right? Over the last decade, it's been truly incredible. But, it's been interesting for me in my research. I found that this is going to actually grow all these existing markets. And specifically, I was talking with the guys from Casino Coin. They're a project that's building some utility on the XRP ledger around gambling, which they told me is about a $500 billion industry. But what they're working on right now is a P2P betting mixer that would allow me and you to bet on when the Ripple lawsuit's going to end. And we'd be able to place a wager, put it on chain, and it wouldn't even involve them, actually. It's just meant to be P2P, where we'd be able to place a bet that didn't exist before. This type of utility didn't exist before. Now, this is just a simple example of me and you being able to set a bet, or me being able to bet against somebody on Twitter when XRP is going to hit 589 or whatever it may be, right? But this is growing a market that's already at 500 billion and introducing even more ability, capability, online time, right? Now that the systems have gone 24/7, 365 for the most part. This is going to be able to grow all of these existing markets. And that's just one example. Now, some of the other utilities that you talk about, I want to give us some time to kind of go into some of these projects. Like I said, I think you're one of the few guys that has actually compiled some serious research on some other utility tokens. And so let's break that down. I wanted to start with Quant. I know that's a project that you've done a lot of research on. What do you have good and bad to say about the Quant project and the status of Quant right now?
So for the moment, I'll try to keep this as unbiased as possible. Quant is by far and away probably my favorite project in this whole space. But with that said, I think some of the positives going on. I guess three things really stand out in kind of the most recent times. So they're working on this one standard with MIT, and that's called Secure Asset Transfer Protocol. And essentially what that is it allows for different DLTs, whether they're permissioned or permissionless. So something permissionless would be something we see in the crypto markets, right? Take like Solana, Avalanche, Ethereum, etc. And then something permissioned is usually private and closed off for enterprises. So think like R3's Corda or Hyperledger Fabric. And SATP basically allows for organic interoperability between the two of them. So you don't need a centralized relay or you don't need a bridge, because we've kind of seen the issues that have happened with bridges, right? From what happened with Ethereum and Solana's wormhole a while back to a lot of other, insecurities within bridges that we've seen. So doing it that way, they are utilizing API gateways, which essentially will be a layer that sits over top of the blockchains and allows you to talk with any other blockchain or legacy system. So you could think things like real-time gross settlements, right? Those will still likely be used even with distributed ledger technology, but they have to synchronize and work together. So that's kind of the whole legacy to DLT interoperability thing. And you do that by finding common communication language between the two networks. So that's kind of the standard of Secure Asset Transfer Protocol, SATP. That got officially approved by the Internet Engineering Task Force a few months back. And the Internet Engineering Task Force is one of the largest standard-setting bodies for Internet standards. So, for example, with TCP/IP, that's kind of how we're talking at the moment right now. That's a standard that was set during the early infrastructure days of the internet and kind of allows for the kind of openness of the internet right now, to where, you can be on a MacBook, but you can send messages to someone that's using a Microsoft computer. So Quant and MIT are really working to, standardize the Web3 blockchain version of it, so to speak, so you can send economic value, kind of like how you're sending information nowadays, to where it's really just borderless. And then the second thing of Quant that's really impressed me recently is they were recently at Financial Times Live's crypto event. So this is the second event they've been to. The first one, the first Financial Times event they attended last year, and that saw the CEO of Visa Europe, the Deputy Governor of the Bank of Canada, and MIT Connection Sciences CTO, along with Quant CEO there. So this year they were there again with the Director of FinTech for the Bank of England, and Quant CEO Gilbert Verdian and the Bank of England's Director of FinTech Tom Mutton. They were on a board discussing together, and Tom Mutton, the Bank of England's FinTech Director, actually came out and said that Quant and Gilbert Verdian were a key part in Project Rosalind, which is one of the CBDC pilots that the Bank of England has been testing out.
That's interesting. Bank of England is really stepping into this. I know that they've been a Ripple partner since like 2018 too, longtime partnership there. And then with Quant there as well, you got additional connection made. There's a third point you wanted to share though on Quant.
There was a third point. I don't remember what I was going to bring up for my third point.
Mm-hmm. You know, and this is what I've been looking at too, is not only do you have to have good tech, but you got to be sitting down at a table where you're sitting across from somebody who actually matters, a bank, an institution, a real business that's actually going to move some money, right? You know, where are we actually going to make money? It's by solving big problems. What Quant is doing, standardizing, is so important. And the standardized messaging became a huge thing when everybody was on the ISO train, right? And so is this token ISO compliant? Is this one not? Oh, there is no compliance, and everyone's misunderstanding what this all is. But at the end of the day, what we have is standardized protocols and messaging, and this is data, payments, you name it. And it's all transitioning right now, right? Like you said, with the internet, sending email, just having connectivity between different types of devices. Cross-chain capability is going to be crucial, and building out bridges, building out standardized ways to do this that don't have the vulnerabilities that we've seen so far in the crypto space, I think is going to be massive. XLS 38D on XRP Ledger Amendment is going to actually bring that cross-chain capability as well. Something that they're working on too with the XRP Ledger. I think this is going to be a must-have capability, utility for any blockchain going forward, right? So Quant's a big part of this. Is there any other things that you wanted to share with us on that project? Some of their team members, everybody knows Gilbert. I've seen some other big hitters joining their team, and that's what it's all about for me. Big hitters on the team, and they're sitting across the table from people that matter. Anything else on Quant, though?
For sure. There's one more thing I guess I'd want to, well, two more things. One more thing I wanted to add just regarding to what you said about the kind of essentiality of interoperability as kind of blockchain evolves, right? So I just want our viewers to kind of take this analogy as an example, because I've seen a lot of people, you know, kind of downplay interoperability, saying it's not needed. And as long as there's other chains, they can just kind of operate in silo. So think of it like this. I'm probably on a different internet and phone service provider than you guys are. Now, imagine if you could only message the people using the same internet plan or phone service providers. That would completely destroy the internet, right? So that's kind of the same way of, you know, blockchain without interoperability.
Right.
You'd simply be building applications on different systems that can only be accessed if you're using that underlying application, which, you know, as we've seen, doesn't scale how we want it. Now, regarding kind of the team at Quant and some of the people they've been in talks with. So one really important thing I look at with projects when researching is connections. And that's kind of like, you know, who the team has been connected to in their past experiences, but also who the team's been talking to ever since, you know, the projects came into inception and guys they've been working with, NDAs, et cetera, right? So Quant has two advisors on their team, which really stand out to me personally. And of course, you already brought up Gilbert. I'm sure most people do know about him, so I'll kind of skip that briefly, but there are two advisors, Guy Dietrich and Neil Smith. So Guy Dietrich, he prior to joining Quant as an advisor, he was actually the managing director for the Rockefeller Group. I'm sure we've probably all heard of the Rockefellers once or twice. And then Neil Smith, he was the previous CEO and chairman of Comcast during its earlier days, to where he played a really core role in growing Comcast out to one of the largest telecommunication networks out there in the world today, right? And then with Qualcomm, that's another company that Neil Smith was an advisor to. That's also been, you know, growing a lot as another large tech company over the past few, well, I want to say like 5 to 6 years. So you know, these guys not only have a lot of experiencing growing out a network and also the kind of business and technological needs for it, but they also have kind of the people that matter in their back pocket, sort of, with guys like Guy Dietrich with his connections to Rockefeller. So they have guys that will, you know, move around large amounts of money, and simply people that for better or for worse, really matter in the global elite world, right?
Yeah, I usually say with some of these projects, they couldn't even get some of these people to pick up the phone when they called them. These projects, they're not even invited to the room, and they would be turned away by the assistant or the secretary. They couldn't be able to get through. The other thing that I see is they call them partnerships, but they're no more than a glorified photo op, and maybe someone's doing a fireside chat, and they call it a partnership. Or they're thinking about doing something with the project and they call it a partnership. What we're looking for is not only partnerships, but beginning to test this technology out. There's a serious problem with the regulations and the ability for these projects to actually start using this technology, especially in the United States. But outside the United States, you're seeing them press on, like you said, with Bank of England and others. And during a bear market, during a recession, times are tough. They're still sitting at the table. They're still sitting fireside chat with the Bank of England. And that's what we like to see. Now, Energy Web Token. I heard you mention that one. That's one that I hadn't researched yet. And so what do you have to share with us on that one?
Yeah, so Energy Web was one of the projects I started looking at over the course of the bear market. And I'm really glad I did. And honestly, I wish I kind of looked into the project a little earlier. I will have to say the name Energy Web Token definitely kind of turned me off away from it initially. But over time, I looked into the project more and more, and it just blew my mind kind of, how many industry leaders were kind of already joining the space and beginning to experiment and test with blockchain technology. So Energy Web kind of operates quite differently from most projects. I would say it's a lot closer to something that of a Hadera hashgraph, where there's kind of this large governing council of big legacy companies. But the way Energy Web was founded was through multiple very large energy infrastructure giants from around the world. So they have guys like Shell, which is the fourth largest energy company in the world. And they have TEPCO, which is Tokyo's electrical power system operator. And they're 50% owned by the government of Japan. And then there's various other either multi-billion, multinational energy infrastructures that help found Energy Web. And if they're not multi-billion energy infrastructures, they're still at the very least owned by their respective state and country government. So that really goes to say a lot for the foundings of this project, right? It's not your usual project that was found in, let's say a regular developer writing a line of code or something, right? These are real companies that have experience building out large successful companies that decided, we're going to expand our operations onto blockchain technology. And so the two main founders behind Energy Web, I think there's something like 8 to 10 co-founders on there, but the two main founders that are highlighted are Rocky Mountain Institute, which was a nonprofit energy consulting group founded back in the 1980s. And they've worked with guys like China, India, the United States White House, et cetera. So they have a lot of experience working and consulting for some of the largest economies in the world. And then the other one is Grid Singularity. This is a Europe-based kind of energy on a blockchain company. And they've basically wanted to, expand what they're doing with energy already on blockchains with Rocky Mountain Institute, and that kind of formed Energy Web. And what they've been doing is kind of building digital identities for individual energy assets, because with our transition to distributed energy resources, which are just things like electric vehicles, wind turbines, solar panels, these all need specific identities attached to each of these energy assets, because we need to track the full life cycle of these energy assets, how they're generating that energy, is that clean energy, how they're getting it, what's the usage rate, et cetera. And we can finally get all this data thanks to blockchain technology, right? And it's immutable at this point.
Distributed energy resources. I'd never heard that term before.
Yeah, it was a term I recently, somewhat recently discovered myself, but it's pretty much just, what it says it is, right? Distributed energy resources.
Yeah. And it is going to be so critical because, whether wind power or solar is the best energy is not the conversation. What the conversation is about is a more efficient world. And so we're going to need to tokenize all of this. And so Energy Web is working on tokenizing distributed energy resources. this is probably a pretty big problem. I would assume.
It's a massive problem, yeah. But I wouldn't say there's so much focus on tokenizing distributed energy resources, but more so bringing it on chain and having these services for distributed energy resources tokenized. So there'll be like small microtransactions that happen, right?
Right. And so when did this project come about? Is this has it been around too very very long time
Since
or
27, I think Rocky Mountain Institute and Grid Singularity began working on it with guys like Shell in 2016, and then it officially launched in 2017.
okay. All right. So in what progress have they made so far in their partnerships?
So they in the energy sector, there's something called renewable energy certificates. This is pretty much another small microtransaction that comes with pretty much proving that your corporation or household had consumed and bought energy that was from a renewable source, right? So one of Energy Web's big missions has been to build renewable energy credit marketplaces so that corporations could go and buy these resources and prove that they've consumed clean energy. So ever since their inception, they've built three of these. One is in Turkey, one is in El Salvador, and the other one is for the kind of Pacific Asian region. So places like Thailand and all the other countries in there. I'm not the best with my geography, unfortunately.
And how do they create the credits, or what are the credits that they're selling?
They're essentially just certificates.
Certificates. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a direct question, Tokenizer. What are your thoughts? Because I've heard both sides, and I've heard a lot of people say and criticize these programs as kind of just BS. Like, as far as the corporations are buying credits to say to balance out how much CO2 and how much emissions they're putting off. But at the same time, this technology in need is real, and we need to have it. We need to be able to track how much energy something's putting off, how much energy something's saving, and across the board. So what are your thoughts on the carbon credit market?
I'd say I'm definitely somewhere kind of in the middle. I think we've all kind of seen the conspiracies about, who started this whole ESG initiative and, who it's being pushed by. But at the same time, maybe it is being a little exaggerated by these large corporations so that it kind of stimulates revenue in the energy sector more. But at the same time, it is a really important kind of cause to help sustain the planet, right? Especially as technology begins to evolve further and further, we're likely going to consume more and more energy. But I do think that with blockchain, there will be kind of a more transparent way to see that we can see which corporations are sucking lots of energy now. And those are probably the ones that want to be, well, maybe not want to be, but should be buying more carbon offsets.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there is kind of this little, argument to where a lot of people do think it is kind of another hyped up narrative. But at the same time, there's a lot of value from that will very likely continue to keep growing as long as the world keeps consuming energy.
And we're two guys that can share our opinion all day here on YouTube, but it's not going to stop the programs and the agendas and everything that's already set in motion. And it's similar to me with the CBDC conversation. Everything we already do is digitized and tracked and traced through everything that we're doing right now, right? So for me, if you're not a criminal, there's really not too much to worry about. Do we want to have some of these social credit scores and some of these things that do kind of control and restrict and could be used in abusive ways? We should stand back on that and resist some of that and make sure that this technology is going to be benefiting us and not controlling us, which is kind of the double-edged sword, But I think, in the United States, at least, I feel confident that we're putting up a good fight as far as our respect for privacy, our respect for individual liberties. That's a whole other conversation. But like you said, whether you like a CBDC or not, do I like to see that Ripple and XRP, one of my main investments, is working with dozens of central banks on piloting and testing, and we have multiple live pilots running right now? I do like to see that. Do I have my concerns about CBDC? Yes. but you got to play both sides almost in a way, I feel like. And to your point, I'm right there kind of in the middle as far as some of this is BS kind of pandering, but at the other hand, we do need to move humanity forward, which is what's so frustrating to me with how the SEC and the regulators, but we don't need to go back on that. Now, with that being said, anything else on Energy Web token that we should know about?
I would just tell you guys to really dive through the Energy Web team and kind of look at some of the collaborations they've had. Like, for example, they've had 6 collaborations with the European Union on multiple different things, whether that's assigning identities to battery assets or finding ways for battery storage. I won't cover all of these in depth here because that would be a whole rabbit hole for another time, but I definitely suggest you guys just, take a look at some of the proof of concepts they've built out.
Yeah, yeah. I know that Ripple and they've been working on a carbon credit program there as well too. It's definitely something that's going to be a massive market to address. That's for sure. Any other? What about Hadera? Let's cover Hadera real quick. Everybody loves HBAR, and I will say the utilities there, hashgraph is fantastic. My thing with Hadera, what I've wanted to see more out of there is more actual use of the token. I see they're partnered, they're meeting with some people that matter, they got an impressive team. What are your thoughts on that, though? I'm just not seeing as much of the adoption and use of the token as I would like at this point. Your thoughts?
I think I completely agree with you on that point. Like, it's hard to kind of deny the power of Hadera because of their governing council, but at the same time, it hasn't really proven too much like appreciation and usage of the token, regardless of however many governing members are joining, whether it's guys like Chainlink or Boeing or Dell. The Hadera token has seemed rather, for better or for worse, underwhelming because to start off, the token dilution for Hadera isn't all too pretty from an investor standpoint, at least. And then to add to that, just the amount of use cases on Hadera's Hadera hashgraph for the HBAR token, it's kind of basic, right? Like, it's a very basic layer 1 token to where you're just paying for fees and things. And I guess most recently, they've allowed you to stake onto their governing council nodes. So guys like Google or Swirlds, you can choose to support your favorite large company now. But, aside from that, there's not too many use cases for the HBAR token. But even then, I think we've seen massive growth with the Hadera ecosystem when you take the token out of account, right? Like, if you've seen from the transaction growth with Hadera, they've pretty much skyrocketed past most other layer 1 networks now. Like, I believe there was 1 week where they accumulated a total of 1 billion transactions. And that really goes to show just like scalable usage at scale of a DLT, right?
Yeah, that's massive. That's actually pretty impressive. I didn't know that. And that's one of the projects that I'm kind of referring to when I talk about these partnerships. That are they anything more than a glorified photo op or a fireside chat? And that's kind of what I've been waiting for. But now you're saying that they have the ability to stake. And I know that they have NFTs now too. And so I think that's one advantage that Hadera has right now is it does have that utility. The NFT marketplace, additional utility like that is bringing those transactions on. That's big. Any recent partnerships or announcements in that regard from Hadera?
I wouldn't say recent, but just kind of to add a little more to kind of the partnerships that Hadera has built with some of their governing council members. So they have 2 banks, or well, they have like 4 or 5 banks in their governing council, but within this specific operation, there were 2 banks in Hadera's governing council that actually use Hadera's hashgraph to try and build out a stable or a CBDC like stablecoin. And so this was between Shinhan Bank, which is one of the top banks in South Korea, and then Standard Chartered, which is another really big bank down in Africa, but they operate in tons of other countries as well.
Yeah.
And so they said they had successfully tested for a CBDC like stablecoin on the hashgraph, which also really says a lot, right? Because Hadera hashgraph, while not officially put under the ISO 20022 coins, there's a lot of involvement with kind of the finance industry with Hadera hashgraph. And so to see the development of things like CBDCs, not just happening on things like Quant, XLM, and XRP, but now also happening on Hadera, I think that really goes to show kind of how we're like, maybe not we're looking at the right side of DLT, but we're the projects that are capturing our eyes are really, the right ones, so to speak.
Right, right. Now, is there any other projects that you think that we should bring up? I forgot to tell you that I need you to give me the next 100x so I can get some good clickbait, the O face and next 100x crypto revealed in the title. So jokes aside, any other project you'd like to share?
Have you seen Ben Armstrong coin? That's been a thing lately.
All right, folks, this one, we're going to wrap this show up here. It's been a pleasure. We'll see you in the next one. I definitely have. I've seen the PSYOP. I've seen the BAM. I'm not going to list off any of the others, but it's like we've hit another little meme coin season again here recently, haven't we?
Oh yeah, no, it's been crazy. Like I know this part of it wasn't quite planned in our introduction, but it's been kind of wild to see the whole revival of the memes. Like I know there were a couple dog coins that people didn't stop mentioning all throughout the bear market. And then of course the rise of Pepe, right?
Yeah, and what's your thoughts on this? Because is it good for the space? Does it bring adoption? Or in my opinion, it's kind of an embarrassment to the space, and it gives more evidence, more for the SEC and the regulators to come after our space with. There's always going to be bad actors, though. That's the thing. We're never going to get rid of these guys.
For sure. And I'm not too sure you can call these guys bad actors, right? Like, I don't think their intention is to ruin the whole blockchain space, but it's just people that, decided to have some fun by making a cryptocurrency. But at the same time, I'm kind of on your side of it because there are a lot of people that's like, especially during the whole SHIB and Dogecoin thing, they're like, no, this is good. This is teaching people how to use crypto. But this isn't how we should be teaching people how to use crypto, right? Like,
right.
Learning how to buy and sell Dogecoin on Binance really doesn't teach you all that much about crypto. It's things like learning how to, interact with blockchain wallets, knowing how to send people payments without needing a centralized intermediary. That's teaching people how to use blockchain.
Right.
With things like Dogecoin and stuff, that's teaching people how to buy and sell an asset. And for the most part, I don't think it's a good thing at all. Like, sure, we get more eyes on crypto, and sure, we might get more volume and price appreciation. But like how you were saying, it's a terrible look for us. Like, for example, during the whole GameStop and AMC thing that happened a few years back, very similar thing, right? It kind of puts the whole meme stuff into a normally what's seen as a professional industry. And while I'm all for fun and laughs, I don't think the way to do it is by, pumping some memes up to like 100,000x or something.
Right. And I would argue that most people lose money on those investments. I mean, I personally know a lot of people that got exposure to crypto through Dogecoin, Shiba. They didn't even know what XRP was. This is barbecues and stuff. I'm seeing people and then they tell me how, they would have made all this money off Dogecoin, but they didn't sell. And I think for most people, they're on the other side of this transaction. They're getting dumped on after the pump occurs. And people get caught up in that greed. And humanity's always going to be greedy, right? But I would argue that this is a bad look for the space and it's bad for adoption, because if you have that as being people's first reaction with crypto is they invested $1,000 and lost half of it or lost all of it, are they going to want to get back into the space? Are they going to want to give up? And I think, that's where we get the waves and the droves of the masses that have been kind of flirting with the space. In 2017, 2018, a lot of people came in because Bitcoin caught everybody's attention, the bull run that took place, and then all of the ICO craze and all of those crypto projects that pumped up the space in 2018, that all crashed and everybody left the space once again. Then in 2021, we come back, Bitcoin's on a crazy run again, along with NFTs, memes, pumped this to 3 trillion for the overall market cap. And we were flying high and having fun, but then we came crashing down here. And I know multiple people, like I said, that held the bag on Dogecoin, Shiba, and people that still are holding that bag. and maybe it'll come back for him. I hope it does, but for the space and the optics, the SEC's sitting at the edge of their seat, waiting to come in and take out some of these projects, I think. But like you said, this is something that I talked about with the XRP Ledger tokens. You have open source permissionless technology. So you're going to get folks that are going to come on and they're going to use this because it's free and easy to use. And they're going to create a joke and a meme and they're going to put it on the ledger. Is that what I think moves the ledger forward? Not in the biggest way. Does it move the ledger forward some by burning transactions and get network usage? Yes. But at the end of the day, I want this open source permissionless technology to be available for us. I'm not going to be able to stop those guys from playing those games and having some fun, which is all fine and dandy. But I guess I haven't done any of the meme coin trading. I don't spend any time on the meme coins because I just think that it's holding back the space from where we can go long term.
For sure. I completely agree with that. I think, you definitely can make money trading meme coins, but as you said, it's a massive risk, right? Because, for example, let's say someone buys XRP on the way to the top. If it comes crashing down, a lot of the guys have just, studied up on the fundamentals of XRP, knowing they're down a lot on their bags now. And for better or for worse, they get this kind of sense of hope and something to look forward to because they realize, even though they bought a project in at very high prices, what they're building is very real. And if it succeeds, there's going to be massive growth, not just in the project, but in the economy as a whole, right? Versus if you were to buy a meme coin token and it comes crashing down and you're just kind of sitting there like, it's the end of that kind of memes run. And odds are it's not going to come back unless, some internet trend starts it up again. And so the odds of that succeeding are, in my opinion, a lot lower than a company that's consistently building, regardless of what the market environment is like.
Waiting for Elon to tweet is not a good investment strategy, right?
No, definitely not.
Now, are you doing any NFTs right now?
So I'm not buying NFTs per se at the moment. There is this one blockchain company I'm working with called ChainStats, and basically what we're building is like a hub for all of on-chain data. So for example, with the XRP ledger, Ethereum, and let's take Hadera, for example, these block explorers are all siloed, right? You can't interact with these together in any way or form, even if there's, a project, let's just say hypothetically utilizing all three of them. So we're building a single platform that allows you to aggregate all that data onto one single interface. And we're also letting permission DLTs join. So things like Corda, Hyperledger, etc. And we've decided to kind of work to decentralize that further because there are on-chain services in the blockchain space, right? But we wanted to kind of add the whole openness and community to it. And the way we did that is by using NFTs as validators. And so these NFTs will serve as the verifiable credentials for you to start validating data for our network.
Wow. Dude, that sounds awesome. That's a massive utility because like you said, all of these blockchain explorers, they're their own websites. There's no congregation of this data anywhere for us to use. And that's a massive utility for us. That's fantastic.
For sure. Thanks, man. And one thing I've always said when I first started creating content was that the odds of me joining a project would be very low because it tie you into this one single ecosystem so much, right? But when I kind of saw what these guys were doing in a very agnostic sense to where it's not just one project, right? It's blockchain and the data stored in these blockchains as a whole. I was like, this is something I can definitely get behind and want to help support.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome. And any thoughts on kind of NFTs, what we've seen so far? We've talked about the memes, right? And that's for a large part what the NFT space has been about. But your thoughts on where the adults are going to use NFTs and banks and institutions and where this goes over the next decade?
For sure. Yeah. I think digital art is obviously what most people refer to NFTs with at the moment. I think that's going to continue. I know a lot of the bigger names kind of shit on the whole digital art thing and say, it's a disgrace to the industry, but I don't think it's a disgrace per se. It's just a very small scaled utility of NFTs. Like
Yeah.
I think there will be a side of NFTs that will be used for art.
Right.
But at the same time, they can just be so much more, right? Like just being digital art doesn't do NFTs justice. Like, for example, how I just explained we're using it as verifiable credentials, almost in the form of a digital identity, right? But then it can be used for kind of more public sector kind of digital identity. So think like passports or driver's licenses, because these can now be officially verified versus physical items, right? Like I'm not afraid to admit that I've owned a couple fake IDs in my life, and with blockchain technology, I probably wouldn't be able to do that, right?
Yeah.
So that's just one part of the use case, and then another utility of NFTs are things like tickets. For example, Ticketmaster is actually the largest issuer of NFTs in the world right now. So that's
Right.
really saying a lot for kind of the big companies that are seeing the utilities in it, right?
Yeah. That's so true. That's massive. And you don't think of it that way, but they are. They're the largest issuer of NFTs that are being used every single day by millions and millions of people. I was thinking of it. What we saw this morning was actually pretty crazy. I made a little video before I came on our interview today in regards to the AI generated picture of an explosion at the Pentagon, which was a fake image, and it was shared around. A lot of big accounts covered it, and the S&P 500 actually tanked, and it caused a $500 billion market cap swing based off of a fake picture. Now, I made the point because everybody wants to demonize AI. It could have just as easily been created by a simple software by someone using Photoshop. This isn't AI being the problem. This is just fake news being spread, picked up by the masses, and how quickly and how vulnerable our markets are. But I was suggesting maybe this is another use case for blockchain technology. Like you said, being able to verify a picture through geotag, timestamp, other ways that you could verify this image, verify this story. We're almost going to be able to I wouldn't say eliminate fake news, because we're still going to have plenty of fake news, I'm sure, but you will be able to verify a source such as an image of a piece of news that's being shared worldwide.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And I think that is essential, especially with how AI has been developing, because I'm sure you've probably seen those images and videos where they're completely AI generated, but there's, pictures of Donald Trump getting arrested before he actually got arrested.
Yeah.
And then there was the whole Joe Biden thing where they kind of use the voice AI thing, right?
Yeah.
Like this is just the start of it. This is like the first 3 to 6 months we're seeing these. Just imagine in 3 to 5 years' time how good this stuff is going to be. So by then, we really need to have a digital ID system and identifiers ready to, test and say, no, this video was AI generated. Yes, this video was actually recorded from the person and it wasn't tampered with. And blockchain can allow for that, because I'm sure I don't have to explain to you kind of the issues that might happen if we don't have that system set in place, right? Like, what's stopping me from making a video of you, Zach Rector, going into a bank and, robbing that said bank? Like, there are a lot of potential threats that can come with AI that I'm sure many of us have already kind of thought of or seen in movies.
Yeah. Yeah. So any other projects that you would like to bring our attention to before we get into everybody's favorite project, especially in my community, XRP? Any others that you'd like to share with us?
I think there's one. There's two more I'll share with you guys quickly. So the first one is Morpheus Network. Their token is MNW for anyone interested in looking further into that. But essentially, what they're doing is digitalizing and automating the supply chain industry. And we've kind of seen this with a variety of projects, right? Like VeChain, we know is a very popular one, gained a lot of hype during last bull run. And their mission was to create a layer one for supply chains. Morpheus Network works a little different to where they're a middleware technology. So much like Quant's Overledger or like Interledger Protocol, it's an agnostic technology, meaning that you don't just plug blockchains into it. It is compatible with DLT and blockchains, but you can plug in legacy supply chain software now. So things like FedEx's system or UPS or DHL, ones that, these large supply chain giants have been using for decades and have been investing blood, sweat, and tears into for tons of years. They're not going to just throw these away because there's blockchain technology, right? they're going to want to find a way to kind of save everything in their current system so they don't have to overhaul the stack and start new on blockchain.
Hmm.
So what if there was a way where you could connect your legacy supply chain modules into a system that lets you communicate with blockchains? That would kind of be the perfect solution to where it's not only efficient because you don't have to restart on blockchain, but you can take everything you've already built and gain all the benefits from blockchain technology. And so
Right.
that's what Morpheus Network is doing. Their team consists of members from the International Supply Chain Education Alliance, which works with guys like the Department of Defense, Ford, General Motors, and a bunch of other large companies that, overseas manufacturing is a large part of their business operations. But they also have the CEO or the former CEO of DHL as their global lead for logistics. And then within kind of some collaborations they've had, they're working with SENASA, which is the food quality and assurance uh, governing company for Argentina. And they've actually come out saying they're officially going to standardize Morpheus Network as the standard for food quality and safety. So that really goes to show just how vast their operations of the supply chain is. Because when you think supply chain, don't just think of logistics and shipping, right? But think of agriculture, think of payments, think of transport. That's all part of supply chains, and that's a lot like how we've been describing blockchain through our discussion, right? With blockchains, it's not just going to cryptocurrencies or finance. Basically, every part of the economy is going to leverage blockchain in some way or form.
Yeah, love it. And project number 2 was?
Project number 2 will be Casper Network. So the token for this is CSPR. And what Casper is building is the most similar thing I could describe them to is like Hadera hashgraph, to where it's a layer 1 network for enterprises to build on. Now, that doesn't mean that it's just for enterprises, right? Retail developers are completely welcome on there. But what they offer that enterprises find so useful is that they have upgradable smart contracts. So at the moment, every network's smart contracts are immutable right now. And the way the Casper CEO says it is that the past being immutable is a feature, but the future being immutable is a bug, because you don't want the future immutable, right? We don't know what's going to happen in the future. So let's say you coded the smart contract up, but 2 years down the line, there's different regulations, and you realize the demand for this specific product that's unlocked by the smart contract has drastically changed, right? You're probably going to want to change that without restarting the whole system. Unfortunately, with most layer ones, you have to restart the whole system now. With Casper, you can upgrade the smart contract on its own, and then that just gets verified based on some of its other parameters. And then additionally, they also have hybrid flexibility within their network. So what we were discussing earlier on with public permissionless chains that we see with layer ones, and then private permission chains with things like Hyperledger, Corda, or Quorum. Casper's found a way to where if an enterprise wants to leverage the kind of privacy settings from a permission DLT so that proprietary data stays hidden, but they want the openness and liquidity access to a public network, Casper's able to build this custom network for that specific business to where it meets those specific parameters that benefits their business the best. So it really opens a new architecture to how businesses can leverage both sides of blockchain technology.
That's
And
awesome.
some, yeah. And I was just going to finish that point about Casper off with they have 3 Fortune 500 companies looking to launch on their platform in Q3, Q4 of this year. They're in the industries of fintech and insurance. And then beyond that, there's also this one company that's been building with Casper, IBM, and Hyperledger. That's called IPWE, and they're actually tokenizing 25 million patents on Casper. And that's already kind of begun with some of the minting.
Wow. That sounds pretty massive. Casper, who do they got some big hitters on their team too?
They do, yes. They have some. They have a lot of members from large enterprises. So a lot of their guys have worked at places like, for example, their CEOs interned at the FBI. So that's saying a bit, right? And then their CTO had worked at Avalara and Adobe, which really, like, if you think about it, they may not be like super large companies like an IBM or Google, right? But these are companies that pretty much get used by everyone in the world of business because Avalara is a tax software. And regardless of what business you are, you're going to have to file your taxes, right? And then with Adobe, just about every single company in the world these days is in some way or form a digital media company as well, right?
That's awesome. Yeah, I know. I've had Casper's been one of the most requested projects for me to deep dive. I haven't gotten around to it yet. Maybe I'll have to go through some of your research and figure what all you found so far on that project. 'Cause I know a lot of people have been asking for that one. So thank you for sharing that with us. Now, the project that everybody wants to talk about, XRP, and I wanted to get your thoughts on XLM too. And I wanted to kind of go through your XRP journey as well. You said it started in 2020, right before the lawsuit was filed. You said, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So, yeah. Finish off what you were gonna say.
Oh, I was just going to ask, when did you realize the XRP was going to handle all the money and that it was going to 589? I'm joking. But yeah, let's, I want to go back to your start. You said you were into Bitcoin and then you got into XRP. Bring us back to the start.
All right. Yeah, I'll walk you guys off from the start. So this was kind of around the time when COVID hit and the money printers started going off, and that kind of made me realize like I think I was like 19 at the time or something, but I was like, okay, well, I've got to do something about this. Otherwise, I'm never going to be able to afford anything. So I started looking into ways people would, counteract inflation. And the most general answer for that was investments, right? You outpace inflation and you'll be fine. So I started looking into things and I realized crypto is the fastest growing industry. But of course, there was still a lot of speculation in there. So I started doing some research and I dove down the rabbit hole of Bitcoin and Ethereum and got those pretty quickly. Ethereum really blew my mind with its whole concept of being like a new platform for the internet. And I was messing around, bought some Ethereum on Coinbase, bought some Bitcoin here and there, and then I stumbled upon this coin called XRP, which I had no idea what it did, but I saw the price had absolutely tanked, and I think it said something like XRP will be delisted from Coinbase in like X amount of days. And so being me, I was like, wait, it's being delisted. That means it's going to be really scarce. So I threw a couple $100 at XRP and I think I was just really confused at why the price kept going down. So, I did my research a bit and then I was like, oh, I just bought this token in the middle of a lawsuit.
It wasn't
So
helping you beat inflation.
definitely not. No. So I was like, okay, well, I'm kind of stuck holding the bag now. So I'm gonna do some research on XRP, and hopefully that will be a little confirmation bias to not feel so bad about my decision.
Yeah.
So I started reading into XRP a little more, and I remember first reading about Brad Garlinghouse, David Schwartz, and Chris Larson, and I was kind of like, wait, these don't seem like your normal people in crypto. Like this isn't like Vitalik Buterin or something. This is actually like a seasoned professional and like serial entrepreneurs that have really had experience building out networks and companies.
Right.
And so that got me kind of interested in the enterprise side of the blockchain space, which had me looking into some other projects that, were building on kind of the more quote unquote centralized sense. So things like Hadera, XLM, Quant, etc. And yeah, since then, it's just kind of been an endless rabbit hole of this side of enterprise DLT that I've kind of coined regulated utility.
Right. Now, what about your thoughts on XLM? It's always an interesting story in trying to figure out and uncover what Jed McCaleb is up to. I always joke about how sneaky they are over there at Stellar because they've gotten more vocal recently. Jed McCaleb, he makes a few appearances per year. But what are your thoughts on Stellar and what they got going on over there?
I wouldn't say I'm the most knowledgeable guy on Stellar, honestly, just because it's one of the projects that I haven't quite taken the time to look into, just because I mean we only have so much time in our days, and Stellar was one where I was like, okay, well, I can choose between putting a fair amount of attention in XRP or XLM, and because of kind of the larger community focus in XRP, I kind of went with that one. But what I do know about Stellar is that their solution seems to be very focused on kind of the retail peer-to-peer payments end of things. And of course, that's massively important for the adoption of blockchain as a whole. You could argue that's almost as important as B2B payments, right? Because I would imagine maybe not by transactional volume that peer-to-peer payments would eclipse B2B payments, but I think the amount of transactions sent in, say, a day or a year between, regular people like me and you probably exceeds what business to business total transactions are. So I think there's definitely a large use case for Stellar, but regarding its connections and fundamentals, I really couldn't tell you all too much about it.
Yeah, yeah. Now, I guess, so for me, as I started out talking about how the $1 trillion problems turn me on, and we look at networks like Swift that are moving, $5-6 trillion daily, ACI worldwide doing about $14 trillion daily. And as you said, the stock equities markets, 200 plus trillion, derivatives, 500 on the conservative side, over quadrillions. We actually don't even know because it's kind of a shadow asset class. And that's kind of being exposed recently too with the amount of derivatives that we have. There's a lot of money moving around. And for me, I'm just looking at blockchains like XRP and some of these others, and I'm just looking and I just try to be conservative. And I just say, if we just get a slice of some of this settlement, of some of these markets, we move to a pretty fun place. What are your thoughts as far as how much of this value, how much of this is actually going to move to DLT technology over the next 5-10 years?
Are you just talking about kind of the financial side of it, or just like the value capture of everything?
Yeah. I mean, how much of this is going to be running on DLT technology, do you think?
So I think you could argue everything will run on DLT, but at the same time, no, there will be nothing that solely ran on DLT. I think the future of this space is a combined effort between all the legacy systems that we've built over the past decades, in addition to blockchain and DLT sitting over top of it now. So, we have everything still like cloud storage and, HTTPS probably isn't going away anytime soon. But within the infrastructure, there's this new layer now, which is blockchain technology. And with blockchain technology, of course, you can build more upon that because you can leverage the data in these blockchains to build additional applications on there that can have us do business in ways we hadn't thought of before, whether that be through peer-to-peer or small micro procedure and microtransactions.
Right.
So to answer the question more clearly, I think almost everything in our economy will be utilizing DLT, but very few things in our economy will solely rely on DLT.
I like that. It's almost everything touches DLT at some point or interacts with DLT, but not everything needs to be represented by a token that has quote unquote value. And I think
Absolutely.
that's a big discrepancy that people are kind of confusing. Now that's incredible. And so while we're waiting to tokenize the internet of value and for us all to get rich with our moon bags, I wanted to hone in. You talked about kind of, researching XRP and some of these other projects started during the events of 2020 and everything that was going on. I think many people, started to look into everything taking place with inflation. To finish off here, I wanted to get kind of your other strategies and tactics that and investments. What are you looking at right now, and how are you battling against this inflation that has been slowing down by the government's data? I call it the CPI lie. They've changed how they calculate it once again. But regardless of that, can you speak to some of the methods and the ways and the strategies that you're protecting, hedging against inflation, and still making money, bringing it in during this recession?
Yeah, for sure. So, of course, there's a lot of ways you can go about this, right? There's the investment side of things, but then there's also the trading side. My personal, I've got to be careful how I say this. Obviously, none of this is any form of financial advice, but kind of the way I go about it is I do a mix of trading and investing long term. So my trades are usually swing trades. They last anywhere from a day to say 2 to 3 weeks. And usually the way I try to go about it is to capture large swings in the markets. And obviously we can't be right every single time, but if you kind of study the movements within the markets, the behaviors within certain trends, you kind of get a sense for a general direction of where the market moves. I'm not so big on, the people that say a exact price target is going to hit, like XRP is going to 589 or Bitcoin's going to 100K. I'm more of the type of guy where, you think if this happens, then there's a good chance we fall back down to this range. Or if this releases by this date, we have a good chance of going up to this range. I think that's a lot more sensible way of learning technical analysis.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, the ethos I have going about trading. Regarding investments, this is one that I've really thought about over the past year. And it's the realization that crypto is not going to have an up year every single year. There's going to be a lot of years where we stay down. Like over the course of 2022, I believe most of that was just pain and turmoil, right? But at the same time, with most assets within the crypto space, because we are still in such an early industry, for the most part, the growth and gains that will come when and if the underlying projects that we're talking about start coming to light and they start being mass utilized. Because of how early it still is, I truly believe that once there is mass utilization, the growth of these tokens and assets and the company as a whole will eclipse the years that we've had to hold during the down years by so much that it really wouldn't matter that you had to hold on for 1 or 2 years where it was going down like 20-30%.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, whether we've bottomed out already or if we still have to go bottom out over the next 6 to 12 months, either way, you look at where this space is going. And like we talk about, the actual numbers and the value that's coming to touch DLT technology is massive. Does it mean that XRP is going to go to 10,000? No, but it means that we're not going to be suppressed forever. This technology is going to be set free, and the utility is coming in a major way. And that's what I'm excited for in this space, is we get to see right now who's still building, who's still growing during this bear market recession. We've taken advantage of this opportunity to continue doubling down on our businesses, and then that's allowed us to stack the suppressed assets. Do you do anything with precious metals either?
Not physical metals at the moment. That is something I'm looking to get into sometime though.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what I talk about in, like you said here, this is not meant to be financial advice, but I just show people how I'm navigating this crisis situation, inflation, recession. What I've done with my investments is I go very conservative in a hedge or an insurance policy against inflation in the form of physical silver, a little bit of precious metals exposure. But then I tell folks that's what allows me to go feel comfortable taking bigger risks on an XRP, on trading crypto, on some of these other projects. They're a little bit more risky. I understand that, we could go down another 50% for XRP in the crypto space, right? That's fine. I got a hedge against inflation. I got a conservative play over here that balances out my portfolio, my investment strategy. And then most of my time, I've been telling folks since last year, the first thing I put out on my recession to-do list was make sure that you're going to still have a job and be able to bring in that income and try to stack up as much as possible, because inflation's not going away. And even if we got just a little bit of extra money at the end of the month to invest, we're going to want to stack these suppressed assets while we still have a time. We're on the brink of one of the biggest transformations this world has seen. And I think that you have done such a great job with all of your research and some of these other utilities that I haven't been exposed to yet. You did a fantastic job breaking that down tonight. And I want to make sure that everybody can go find your content, go find your work, and show you some love. So can you list off the website, and we'll drop it in the link on down below?
Yeah, for sure. So it's just tokenicer.network. You can just type that in your browser and it should take you to kind of my research hub where you can find everything from my Twitter threads, Medium articles, Spotify podcasts, or YouTube videos. I have hours worth of DLT research content that you guys can dig through. And yeah, if there's ever any questions, feel free to hit me up in my Twitter DMs or on Telegram. I'm always happy to talk.
Awesome, man. It's been an absolute pleasure for everyone. If you guys haven't already, go follow him on Twitter. We'll put the link on down below. Go check out his work. While you're waiting for me to do a deep dive on Casper, I'm sure Tokenizer's got plenty of stuff to share on that project and others. So thank you again, brother, for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me on, Zach. I had a blast.
All right, folks, if you appreciate these interviews and this content, make sure you subscribe, hit that notification bell, and you smash that thumbs up for us on the way out. and share this message far and wide. I'll see you guys in the next one. God bless you all.